Okay, in an earlier example, we talked about how we could graph two periods of this function, 2 cosine 2x minus 1, where x is positive when we got our given graph, right? And we talked about how we could build and determine our period, right, and our amplitude from this information. We talked about our center line. But now, let's consider, what if we have to determine the solutions to g of x equals 0, where x is in the closed interval from 0 to 2 pi, right? This is an epsilon. It just means included in, right? So x is going to be a value that's in the interval from 0 to 2 pi inclusive, right? Another way we could say this is determine the x-intercepts for g of x, right? So we can tell that we're going to have our solutions. Right, we can tell that we're going to have our solutions at those 4 spots. Right? So how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to take our equation, 2 cosine 2x minus 1, set it equal to 0. Add 1 to both sides. That's going to give us 2 cosine of 2x is equal to 1. Divide both sides by 2. That's going to leave us with cosine of 2x is equal to 1/2. Right? At this point, I find it useful to consider my quadrants. I know that my cosine is positive in the first quadrant and in the fourth quadrant. I know that I have this symmetry, and I know that my reference angle happens to be pi over 3. Therefore, my solutions will occur when my angle, in this case 2x, when my angle is equal to pi over 3, or when my angle is equal to 5 pi over 3. Well, now I need to solve for x, so that leaves me with x equals pi over 6, or x equals 5 pi over 6. Okay, not too bad. But if we look for our interval, we actually have 4 solutions. This just gives us 2 of our solutions, right? So if I'm looking at my work, these are my first 2 solutions. I know that from this solution all the way over to the solution right over there is going to be my period, right? And so then I can say also at x equals pi over 6 plus my period, which would be pi over 6 plus 6 pi over 6, because my period is pi, which would be 7 pi over 6. So at x equals 7 pi over 6, as well as I need to make my consideration for my second solution, 5 pi over 6, plus my period with that common denominator, which would then give me at 11 pi over 6. Okay, well, this would be my 2 solutions, right? Then I could say, hey, at 5 pi over 6 plus 6 pi over 6, and at 11, which is 11 pi over 6. So my 4 solutions, pi over 6, 5 pi over 6, 7 pi over 6, and my last solution, 11 pi over 6, right? Knowing the graph can help me solve these trigonometric equations, and knowing my values for my trig ratios will also help me solve. All right, simply follow through our steps. We can get to the correct answer. Do be sure that you complete your practice.